You're not bad. You're just scared.
Don't let that black girl get close to the cage. The cop yelled that first. His voice broke through the strained calm of the Fair Hollow police station like thunder. Everyone stopped moving, save for the girl in the old yellow dress. She kept going. She didn't even move. Ayla was her name. And in a place where a black child's smile was seen as an act of defiance, her bravery would soon become a story that would live on forever. This is a story about black people. Welcome to Hidden Worth, where the strongest stories are right in front of you, just waiting for someone bold enough to look closer. Before we get started, please hit the like button if you think that kindness can transform anything, even fear. Because what happened in that station would make every officer rethink what they thought they understood about monsters. There was a lot of stress in the air. A huge German shepherd named Dagger growled deep behind the bars. It was the kind of roar that shook your bones. In the state of Alabama, he was the most deadly police dog. 4 people who tried to tame him have been hurt. One of them quit the police force. People said that Dagger couldn't be saved. But that morning, a petite, courteous, and barely 10-year-old black waitress's daughter stepped right up to his cage. "Sweetheart, don't go near him," the cops yelled. "He'll murder you." She didn't say anything. She only glanced through the bars and said quietly, "You're not bad. You're just afraid, aren't you?" The growling ceased. It felt like time itself stopped for a moment. The officers gazed with their mouths closed, not sure if they were seeing a miracle or a catastrophe about to happen. That heartbeat would destroy all this village thought it knew about fear, color, and value. Because the most harmful item in the room can be, isn't the monster behind the chains. The hate made them. So stay with me. What occurred next changed more than just a dog, but a whole town for good. He was something else before he became the beast in the cage. Dagger wasn't always his name. In the hot southern Afghanistan, he was known as Shadow, a name that soldiers say with respect, a name that means survive. Shadow was more than simply a dog. He was a hero in the war. He worked with a young corporal named Elias Monroe in the 8th Recon K-9 unit. They had searched more than 70 complexes, found more than 20 IEDs, and saved many lives. Shadow followed Monroe everywhere, not just because of training but also because he loved her. You can't find that kind of bond in manuals. It gets made in the heat of battle. The last task they had was supposed to be easy, a route check via a settlement in the desert. But troops persuade themselves that things are simple to keep calm. First came the explosion, which was swift and brutal. The explosion sent their armored Humvee flying into the air. Monroe was thrown clear, but not far enough. Once, Shadow had barked. A lot of noise. Important. A warning that came too late. When the dust settled, Shadow was buried under the bent metal. He was alone without the one person he trusted the most. For 3 days, he didn't eat, did not want water, bit the doctor who tried to look at his paw. He broke something inside him, and no one could fix it. They sent him home. No parade, no ceremony, just a flight and a file with the mark unstable. He moved between 5 departments during the next 18 months. The growling increased louder with each move. The glances got colder. He bit 2 cops. He trapped another one in a locker room for 20 minutes. One commander said he had become a loaded gun with fur. They gave him the name Dagger, which means something sharp, something dangerous, something that urged others to stay away. And in the end, he ended up here. In a town that doesn't care. In a cage that is too powerful to breach. In a story that most people had already figured out how it would finish. He would stay still for hours, staring at the door, as if he were waiting for someone who would never come. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Shadow was still there. He was recently put in the ground, underneath grief, under agony, under the armor he had erected to stay alive. Someone who didn't believe he was a monster would be all it took to find him again. Fair Hollow, Alabama. A postcard-perfect village. Fences made of white pickets. On Sundays, church bells ring. Kids riding bikes past small restaurants with hand-painted signage. But not everything that sparkles is clean. You would notice it if you waited long enough to witness who got served first, who crossed the street to avoid somebody, and who was monitored when they stepped into the grocery shop. Fair Hollow didn't wear hoods to show their hate anymore. It wore it with rules. Not said. Not written down. But it was followed to the letter. Kids of color didn't play in the main park. Not in an official way. But give it a shot and see how quickly someone calls the police. Even though it said family friendly in huge red lettering, black parents didn't sit inside the Griddle Cafe. People termed it attitude if you were a black female with a big smile and a strong voice. The people of Fair Hollow weren't cruel, not in the way they would say. They were nice. They said, "Bless your heart," and then they moved their handbag to the other side of the bench. They smiled when they told Ayla's mom to use the back door to get things. When Ayla requested if she might sit up front during the Christmas parade, they answered, "Not here, honey." That's how Fair Hollow preserved the peace. By keeping people like Ayla in their place. Ayla was 9 years old. They lived in a 2-bedroom trailer on the east side, close to the railroad tracks. When the wind picked up, the trailer trembled. Miss Tessa's mom worked 2 jobs. She worked in the morning at the cafe, and at night she cleaned classrooms after school. Every tip and every crumpled dollar went to keeping the lights on and Ayla's sneakers from breaking apart. But no amount of hard work could make them fit in. Ayla was the only black girl in her class at school. The teacher nicknamed her Sweetheart, but she never remembered her name the first time. When she walked by, the kids whispered, called her trash, and asked if she used lotion, made fun of how she spoke. And what about Ayla? She didn't fight back. She smiled like her mom told her to. In Fair Hollow, though, fighting back just made them right. But deep inside, beneath their bright brown eyes and big smile, there was a fire. A calm one. The kind that doesn't burn quickly. The kind that is patient. Fair Hollow was a place where females like Ayla could be quiet. But it was about to find out what occurs. When one of them eventually says something. It all began with a sandwich. On white toast, peanut butter and jelly. That morning, Ayla had cooked it herself. With care. As if it were a gem. Her mom was working late and couldn't bring lunch, so she used what was left in the pantry. The last 2 slices of bread, a tablespoon of peanut butter, and jelly that was largely sugar and memories. During recess, she sat under the huge oak tree by the fence. That was her place. Away from the swings and the snickers and looks. She delicately unwrapped the sandwich, as if it were something holy. That's when they showed up. 3 guys. Caleb, Wyatt, and Connor. The same people who called her Ayla the Ash because of her skin. The same people who earlier told her that the drinking fountain was just for real Americans. Connor laughed and pointed at the sandwich. "Is there syrup in your sandwich? Is that what poor folks eat?" Wyatt took it from her hands. Caleb took her backpack and turned it upside down. Ayla didn't move. She didn't yell. No tears. She quietly picked up her pencil pouch, even though jelly was all over her clothing. Connor moved closer. "Say something." "What? Are you quiet now, Ashy?" She looked up, her eyes firm. "Are you done?" she asked, her voice gentle yet forceful. Wyatt pushed her. Hard. She fell to the ground. Palms scraped, torn knees, and then they forced her to eat dirt. Put her face in the grass and laughed. Caleb added, "She's used to being on the ground. She probably cleans floors like this too." There was no teacher. No assistant stopped it. Ayla didn't run when it was over. She went on a walk, knee with blood on it. The backpack is open. But what about her head? Still high. She went right past the main office, beyond the lunchroom, beyond the town square, all the way to the diner where her mom was cleaning the booths. Tessa stopped when she saw her. "Ayla?" The girl didn't say anything, just sat on the back step. Not a word. That's when she heard it, a low, rumbling growl coming from the alley behind the building. She stood up slowly, her heart racing. I thought it could be a lost dog or something worse. But what she witnessed, it was the monster that everyone in Fair Hollow talked about. The monster in the cage. The dog that no one could touch. Dagger. Not moving at all. Looking at her. Not snarling. Just looking. And for the first time that day, Ayla didn't feel little. She felt like someone was looking at her. All the kids in Fair Hollow knew about the dog. People called him the Beast in Cage 12. The killer of cops. The untouchable. 3 weeks ago, he had been sent to the Fair Hollow police station. No news release. No pictures. Just whispers. That he had hurt a handler in Georgia. That the state wanted him dead, but the sheriff said no. That even professional police officers had to wear bite suits to feed him. Kids dared one another to sneak behind the station after school. To look at the cage. To hear the roar. Wyatt, the same boy who pushed Ayla's face into the earth, was the first to say it. I bet that dog wouldn't even go near her. She smells like the linoleum in the kitchen. The others laughed. Then she dared her to show it. Ayla left. Not because she wanted to show off, but something inside her had broken. Or maybe it had finally lighted. She went through a hole in the fence and followed the gang around back. The air smelled like grease, metal, and something strange. There he was. Huge. Silenced. Muscles moving under thick black and tan fur. He walked back and forth behind thick steel bars, his eyes sharp and his ears open. The youngsters jumped when he moved, even from 15 feet away. Dagger's snarl was low, not loud. The type that shook your chest and made your knees lock up. Wyatt said with a snarl, "Go on, Ayla. Let's see if he eats garbage." The other people laughed. Ayla didn't even glance at them, though. She moved forward slowly. Then one more. And one more. The air was thick. Her heart raced in her ears. But she didn't stop. Dagger stopped walking around. Turned. Stared right at her. Everyone stopped breathing. Waiting for the snarl. The bark. The cost. But it never came. He just sat there. Relax. Still. He inclined his head a little, as if he were trying to recollect something. Ayla took another step. There were barely 3 feet between them now, with only a pair of bars separating them. She slowly bent down, looked him in the eye. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm not afraid of you." And Dagger blinked. Then he put his head down. The rest fled away, screaming, laughing, and cursing that she had charmed him. But Ayla stayed. At that time, she knew something that no one else did. The creature wasn't really a monster. He was only waiting for someone who wouldn't move. Officer Holden Turner had seen a lot in the 15 years he had been on the job. Drug busts that didn't go as planned. Domestic fights that developed into full-blown standoffs. I even calmed down a child with a shotgun once. That day, I saved 3 lives. But nothing in his work life had prepared him for what he witnessed on that grainy black and white security camera. He watched the video 5 times. Every time, the same thing happens. Dagger was in his cage, as usual, pacing with his nose flaring and his ears twitching. The dog broke 3 leashes, bit 2 policemen, and put one of them in physical treatment. Then this little black girl walks up to the bars like she's going to a petting zoo. No bite suit. No warning. Don't be afraid. Just relax. And Dagger? He sat down. He looked. He paid attention. Turner slumped back in his chair and scratched his temples. "What the hell is this?" he said. He muttered. Officer Danvers, who was young and hyper, drank his gas station coffee and said, "She might be like one of those people who can talk to dogs." Turner didn't even look up. "Dog whisperers? Danvers, this isn't a mix of rescue pits in a backyard." He clicked through the file one more time. Reports on behavior. Logs of incidents. Every word shouted, "Not fit, not safe. The order to kill is pending." How could a kid, who probably didn't weigh more than 70 pounds, just go up to Dagger like he was a golden retriever in the backyard? Turner got up. Took his keys. "Where are you going?" Danvers inquired. "To see it for myself." Dagger was already pacing again by the time Turner got to the kennel wing. He was upset and couldn't sit still. He paced like that when he thought someone who didn't belong was coming. But Turner was a part of it. He was the one who gave him food, watched his angry outbursts, kept track of every grumble and snarl. And yet, Dagger didn't look at him the same way he looked at her. Turner secured the kennel that night and sat outside to watch. The way the dog moved when it saw shadows. The way he stopped talking when the hallway lights buzzed. It felt like something was constantly going to go wrong. Officer Holden Turner felt something he didn't expect for the first time in a long time. Not scared, but not clear. Because magic wasn't real. But what else could explain that girl? And that dog. Sitting together in quiet, like old friends who have found each other again. Dagger couldn't sleep that night, long after the station lights went down and the janitor finished cleaning. He never did sleep. Not completely. His body could be at rest, but what about his mind? His mind was like a war zone. His ears stayed attentive even in the dark, twitching at every hum of the heater and every flicker of the lights in the hallway. He had learned to slumber lightly from the world, not heavy enough. But tonight was different. Something is wrong. He lay curled up in the back corner of his strong kennel, with his muzzle on his paws and his tail still. And then it came, like a soft breeze from an open door. A smell. Soft. Known. Not the clean smell of bleach and moist concrete he was used to. Not the uniforms of officers who were scared and maintained their distance. This was different. Nice. Like flowers that grow wild and burn. And dirt. Dust from the desert. His eyes moved under closed lids. A memory came back. He was back in the town. Not the compound. Not the goal. The village, which is outside the zone. The one they weren't meant to get close to but always did while on patrol. And there she was. A girl. Very small. Not older than 9. Her brown complexion was covered in sand, and her hair was tied up with a crimson ribbon that used to be white. Every morning, she would sit on the side of the well and watch the convoy go by like it was a parade. And every now and then, when the soldiers weren't busy, she'd sneak over. No words. A smile. And food, too. Cloth-wrapped scraps. Bread that has been soaked in stew. A chunk of lamb that was so little it could fit between her thumb and finger. Always given with 2 hands and a smile. Shadow, which was his name then, would sniff it first, look at Monroe for approval, and then carefully take it from her hands. She was the only person who could get close to him. Monroe didn't ask any questions. Said, "Looks like someone has a shadow of her own." There was shooting in the hills one night. There was an alert. Monroe got the team ready. The convoy never made it back through the village. When they got back a week later, the well was empty, and the girl was no longer there. There is no red ribbon. No bread. Just quiet. That was the first time Shadow didn't eat by himself. Now, years later, he remembered in the center of a police station that was thousands of kilometers away from that desert. Not the noise, not the face. The emotion. Without a doubt, kindness. Of little hands giving peace without saying a word. And Isla, the girl in the yellow dress, smelled just like her. Not quite, but very near. In Dagger's world of chaos and orders, that was enough to shake something deep inside, something he thought war had buried. That night, he didn't snarl. Didn't walk. He just lay there, be quiet. And for the first time in a long time, he had a dream. Not of bombs, not of blood. But there was a small girl with a red ribbon and a smile that didn't change. Ayla came back the next afternoon. Not because someone told her to. Not because she had to show something. She came back because something about that moment, the silence, the stillness, the way he stared at her stayed with her. A lot of dogs barked, their tails wagged, or they growled. But this one looked, and she wanted to know why. This time she walked by herself. She walked past the church parking lot, through the alley next to the diner, and onto the rear lot of the Fair Hollow police station. She was aware that the cameras would see her. She didn't care. She crawled through the fence like previously, but this time there was no crowd, no laughter, and no names thrown at her back like stones. Only her, and the cage. He was there, same spot, same place. The huge frame curled up in the dark nook and stayed still as a rock. Ayla took a deep breath and moved ahead. 1 step. 2. 3. The gravel made a crunching sound under her shoes. Dagger's ears moved. He raised his head. Their golden eyes met, sharp, crazy, and something else. Acknowledgement. Not like he knew her. But he remembered something because of her. Ayla halted 3 feet from the bars. "Hello again," she said softly. No growl. Do you remember me? Nothing yet, just taking a breath. Take it easy, steady. I'm not here to hurt you. I simply wanted to check on you. She crouched down, being careful not to move too quickly. She took something out of her pocket, a broken bit of cookie from the diner, chocolate chip crumbled from the walk. She held it up in her open hand. Are you hungry? Dagger stood up. Not quickly, not a threat, but not short. She could hear her heart thumping in her ears like thunder. She didn't move. He went ahead, one step at a time. The pavement under his claws clicked in time with her breathing. He halted then, just a few inches from the bars. Ayla's hand was still outstretched. She didn't blink. He took a deep breath. Stopped. Then, softly and tenderly, he placed his nose on the tips of her fingers. She froze all over. Not in fear, but in awe. Because she knew at that instant, this has nothing to do with a cookie, or even about being brave. It was all about trust. And somehow, she had earned his. Dagger stepped back, went back to his corner, and lay down, still staring at her. Officer Turner stared from the hallway monitor, mouth slightly wide and breathless. He had seen Dagger attack grown men, but there he was, bowing down to a youngster. And Turner didn't know what worried him more. The dog that bit without warning, or the one who had just decided not to. Fair Hollow was bustling by the end of that week. Not with happiness. Not with pride. With doubt. The first rumors began at the diner. A regular leaned over the counter, swirled his coffee too hard, and said to Miss Tessa, "Did you hear what your little girl has been up to?" She blinked. "Excuse me? They say she's been sneaking around the back of the police station. With that dog." The spoon hit the saucer a little too hard. From there, it spread quickly. The ladies in church murmured over hymn books. Clerks in stores bent across the aisles to talk about what they heard. Teenagers shared grainy phone footage with titles like, "Did this girl get magic or what?" And the stories got bigger. People thought that Ayla had cast a spell on the dog. Some people stated she gave him something, maybe pills or food with something unnatural in it. One woman said it was voodoo, and that she had seen it previously in Louisiana, and knew the signs. "She has a gift," they said in a whisper. Others murmured, "She's got a curse." One guy at the barber shop said, "That's not normal. The dog hasn't been right since she touched it. That girl, I wouldn't let her near my kids." Miss Tessa heard everything. In the store. In church. There were two older women behind her on the bus trip home, and they thought she wouldn't hear them. Back in the day, you knew your place in this town. Now their kids think they can go where they want and touch what they want. At first, Ayla didn't get it. She believed people would be shocked. Glad, maybe you're curious. The stares, on the other hand, got colder. More time. More sharp. People at school didn't push her about anymore, but they also didn't sit with her. She turned into the ghost of her own class. And through it all, the only place she felt safe was behind the gate. With a dagger. She'd go after school, sometimes with treats and sometimes simply to be quiet. She would sit next to his cage and tell him about her day. He would lie down with his eyes closed, tail flicking, and breathing steadily. They were both outcasts. Two wrongs in a place that was supposed to be right. They found tranquility in that space behind the station. But towns like Fair Hollow don't stay peaceful for long. Not when it breaks the rules. Not when it belongs to someone who shouldn't have it. The town had made a choice. Ayla was not a miracle. She was a troublemaker. And soon, someone would try to fix it. It took place on a Monday. The sky was cloudy, and it felt low and heavy, like something horrible was about to happen. Ayla had just gotten out of school. One of the straps on her backpack was broken, and her sneakers were wet after walking through a puddle that someone accidentally shoved her into during lunch. She took her customary route behind the church and turned the corner near the old basketball courts. She noticed them then. Connor, Wyatt, Caleb. The same three boys who had been making her life miserable for months. This time, though, there were no teachers. No one to watch over the playground. No place to run. Connor moved forward. Do you think you're famous now? Wyatt smiled. Made everyone in town talk. Girl with a dog. Caleb went around to her back. You cast a spell on it, didn't you? My dad stated that. Ayla's hands were tight around the straps of her bag. She said in a calm voice, I didn't do anything. Connor's smile changed. That's right. You never do anything. Then he pushed her. Very hard. She fell to the ground with a grunt and grazed her elbow on the gravel. They moved around like wolves. Wyatt took her backpack and dumped everything out. Caleb kicked her notebook into the woods. Connor leaned down and whispered, Maybe if we beat you up, that freak dog will come to your rescue. Ayla looked up, blood running down her elbow, and her voice was steady. He'll come. Connor laughed. Yeah? Let's see. But he couldn't touch her again yet. They heard it. A noise that broke the air like thunder. Not a bark. A loud noise. Iron, bending. Then there was mayhem. The sound of claws scraping against the ground. A black and tan fur ball running across the field. Dagger. No muzzle. No leash. No warning. The station's cage, ripped open. He had felt her fear. And he ran away. Right down the alley. Traffic from the past. Over the course of 2 blocks. To her. The boys stopped moving. Dagger didn't attack. He didn't have to. He stood with his legs wide apart, tail down, and teeth showing between Ayla and the others. A snarl was so low that it shook the ground under their boots. Connor stepped back 1 step. Then another. Caleb let go of the backpack. They ran, screaming like kids who had just encountered a ghost. And Dagger? He didn't run after. He turned and rubbed his face on Ayla's shoulder. She stretched up with a shaking palm and said, You came for me. His tongue touched her cheek once. The sirens got louder behind them. Someone had called it in. And when Officer Turner got there, what he saw made him stop in his tracks. A small girl with blood on her face, holding the head of the most dangerous dog in the state on her lap. Like he had been waiting there for a long time. And something broke open in Turner's chest. Monsters don't keep kids safe. But Dagger had. The report should have been normal. Over the years, Turner had penned hundreds of them. Things that happened with dogs, using force, people who aren't in the military. Nothing has changed. But this one? This one didn't feel like a normal day. Dagger had gotten past a cage that was stronger. Followed a child all over town. Defended her without being told to. And then he let himself be abducted without a fight. Everything was confusing. Turner stayed late, then. There wasn't much going on at the station. The rain tapped on the glass. He took the hefty case file for Dagger out of the cupboard. It had red tape over the spine. He flipped through the behavior logs, records of transfers, pictures of the incident. Then something drew his attention. A picture. Faded, bending at the corners. It came from Afghanistan. A younger Dagger, who was still called Shadow at the time, sat next to his handler, Corporal Elias Monroe. Both looked tired, dusty, and proud. But they weren't the ones who froze Turner's hand. The woman next to them was the one. Dark skin, very tall, eyes that are kind behind tired lashes. A girl about 2 years old was holding onto her blouse. Turner flipped the picture over. Someone had written with light ink, Shadow, Elias, Camp Kelso, 2013, Tessa and Ayla. He stopped breathing. Tessa, Ayla, the diner server, the girl with the smile. Dagger hadn't just reached out to her because it felt right. He knew her. She was a part of the family. Turner quickly went through the rest of the file. A message from Monroe's last entry was hidden in a deployment log. Shadow has been very close to a little girl at the camp. The supply tent is where her mom works. Every night, he waits by their trailer. He acts like he's protecting them, I swear. Turner sat back in his chair, and the pieces fell like dominoes. Dagger wasn't surprised by the smell, sound, or presence of Ayla. It was a recollection, something buried deep in a psyche that has been hardened by war and suffering. She hadn't tamed the monster. She had told him who he was before he became one. This wasn't magic. It was an acknowledgement. The girl who used to give her cookie to the boy behind a chain-link fence. It was the same little girl who used to curl up next to his kennel at Camp Kelso as her mom folded clothes in the hot desert. And somehow, after years of suffering, loss, and quiet, that part of Dagger was still alive. Turner looked at the picture one last time before putting it down on the desk. It wasn't just a story about a black girl who calmed down a vicious dog. It was about two people whose lives had been torn apart by war but who had rediscovered each other again via memory. And, at that moment, Officer Holden Turner made a pledge to himself. No matter what it required, he would make sure that everyone knew the truth. The front yard of the Fair Hollow police station looked like something out of a movie 2 weeks later. Vans for the news, chairs that fold up, poles with flags on them, police officers in full dress blues. And in the middle of it all was a small black girl in a yellow dress. Her hair was pulled back with crimson ribbons, a scar healing on her elbow. She put her hands behind her back in a tidy way. Dagger was next to her. No muzzle, no cage, no leash. He had a shiny silver emblem on his collar and a tail that quietly thumped in the grass. Captain Morgan walked up to the stage, cleared his throat, and glanced out at the small group of people. Today we honor not just a dog who served and protected, but also a bond that showed us all what loyalty really means. He stopped and looked at Ayla. Miss Ayla James, we name you an honorary handler, the youngest in the state's history, by the power given to this department. Gasping and gentle clapping, Tessa's hand shot up to her mouth. Turner crossed his arms and flashed a half smile, showing pride in his chest. And what about Dagger? He got up. I walked over to Ayla and put his head softly on her shoulder, just like he had done 1,000 times before. Turner took Ayla and Tessa out the front doors later that day. It was warm outside. For once, the town felt quiet. Turner responded, "You're a good kid, Ayla." She gazed at him. "He's the good one," said Dagger. Turner laughed. "No, dear. He only remembers who he was because you never forgot who he could be." Ayla sat on the back steps again that night, behind the diner. The same place where she first saw him. But now Dagger was snuggled up next to her, his head in her lap, and he was moaning with peace instead of dread. The town of Fair Hollow saw a new story for the first time in years. Not a wild dog and a female who was unusual, but of two hearts that had been broken and didn't want to stay that way. Sometimes, the thing that helps us get better isn't loud. It's not magic. It isn't even fair. It's merely someone who sees our mess and says, "I see you." If you've ever thought that no one understood you, like you were too angry, too different, too much, think of Ayla. Don't forget Dagger. And keep this in mind. It can change everything to be properly seen. This is a black story that needs to be told. And if it made you feel anything at all, give it away. Like it. Make someone else feel like they are seen too. Sign up for Hidden Worth to read more tales that show that healing doesn't need permission. Just a little love, a little remembrance, and a lot of courage. You're not the only one. Not right now. Never. Welcome back.